The Oakland Raiders, one of the most storied NFL and one of the original AFL franchises. Whenever I hear the song Autumn Wind, I always think about the Oakland Raiders in the 1970s and 80s. They were a great team with guys like George Atkinson, Marcus Allen, Howie Long, Matt Millen, Jim Plunkett, Fred Blitnikoff, and Ken Sabler, just to name a few. They were the definition of stability. They won 3 Super Bowl championships, and they had one of the best catchphrases that was made up by their owner, Al Davis, who would utter the phrase,
"Just win, baby."
And win many times they did. However, that was 40 to 50 years ago, and the Oakland Raiders are less than a shadow of their former selves. It takes a lot to win in the National Football League. It isn't easy. Teams, coaches, and GMs work very hard and go through a lot of trial and error to win football games. Think Bill Belichick was great at winning on his first bout of being a head coach of the Cleveland Browns? No. You think Pete Carroll was a great winner when he coached the Patriots? No. The fact is, winning is difficult, but winning at a consistent level is even more difficult. Let's be honest here. The Raiders' hire of Jon Gruden at the beginning of the 2008 season was a way to attempt to gain some nostalgia back to the 2001 season, a season where the Oakland Raiders were very successful. They were 10-6 division champions and were the winners of a wild card game at home against the New York Jets. And while they lost to the soon-to-be Super Bowl champions in the New England Patriots on a technicality 2 weeks later, Jon Gruden was traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after firing longtime head coach Tony Dungy. Jon Gruden was traded for a first in 2002, second in 2002, a first rounder in 2003, and finally a second rounder in 2004. The end result was the Raiders were left with a discount coach. The Buccaneers lost a lot of draft capital, which set them back a few years. The Buccaneers won the Super Bowl against the Raiders, and both teams haven't won a playoff game since that Super Bowl, and have both been to the playoffs a total of 3 times between each another. So you could say that trading to Jon Gruden was a bad thing for both teams in the long run, as the Raiders plain and simply couldn't draft to save their lives, and Jon Gruden was unable to get a good quarterback. While we don't always like to think about what could have been here at 2 birds and a third, we're going to think about that right now. What if Al Davis doesn't trade the young coach Jon Gruden to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Well, first things first, we need to think about who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sign as their head coach. There are 2 possibilities. Either the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make the smart choice, or they make the dumb choice. The smart one would have been the signing of John Fox, the New York Giants defensive coordinator that was on Jim Fassel's staff in Super Bowl 35 against the Baltimore Ravens. He would probably take a year to get this team acclimated before having any real success. They would be a great place to go because they were relatively established. They had a defense, a running back, and an all-star wide receiver. Or Steve Spurrier. Steve was the head coach for the Florida Gators when they won the national championship twice and was highly regarded as a college coach that would make the next step to the NFL. This would be a dumb pick because, like the Redskins, Steve Spurrier probably have messed up the Buccaneers too. I'm going to be nice here and bring in John Fox. On the other hand, the Raiders don't lose Gruden, and Raider Nation goes strong all season and end 12-4, getting the number 1 seed and going all the way to the Super Bowl. On the other hand, there are no Buccaneers in the Super Bowl to upset the Eagles, so the Eagles get in and don't lose the game at Veterans Stadium. So it is yet another Raiders vs. Eagles Super Bowl. This time, Barrett Robbins does not get nervous because Jon Gruden doesn't change offensive signals, so he doesn't go on an alcohol bender and get arrested. He plays the game, and the Raiders win the Super Bowl 24-10 on the arm of their quarterback, Rich Gannon, and their defense led by Bill Romanowski and Charles Woodson. Raider Nation was on the top of the world. They had reached the pinnacle of the NFL for the first time since the early 80s. The Raiders re-signed Jon Gruden, and the 14-year veteran Rich Gannon decided that he would retire from the National Football League after the 2003 NFL season, with enough time to groom Chris Sims from the University of Texas, son of the Super Bowl MVP Phil Simms. This time, Chris Sims has the likes of great offensive line and wide receiver core with Joey Porter, Ronald Curry, Doug Gabriel, Zach Crockett, and Tyrone Wheatley. The Raiders also make Jon Gruden the general manager of the Oakland Raiders, which really excites the Raider Nation, and they stand by the toughness of their coach. The Raiders unfortunately never make it back to the Super Bowl, not even back to the AFC Championship even. With Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Ben Roethlisberger in the AFC, the Raiders never have a chance to get far in the playoffs. Also, Gruden is not good at drafting either, and Chris Sims is found to be very much injury prone. Actually, Chris Sims is so injury prone that he ends up rupturing his spleen in the regular season game against the up-and-coming Baltimore Ravens, which ended his promising NFL career. Because of this, the Raiders were unable to replace Chris Sims. They had Bruce Gradkowski, they had Andrew Walters, and they had Marcus Tuiasosopo. It is so bad that they were forced to sign aging quarterback Jeff Garcia from the Eagles for one last Super Bowl hurrah. Garcia plays well, even leading the Raiders to a wild card loss and then another 9-7 season. The Raiders were actually leading the division at one point until they started to puffer out and lose their edge, culminating in 4 straight losses to go 9-7. Al Davis was furious. He decided to fire one of the best head coaches he ever had. The Raiders couldn't draft well, and ultimately their success went away just as fast as the end of Rich Gannon's career. The Raiders were a mess and started a half-a-decade plunge. On a positive note, at least the Raiders wouldn't live through the tragic career of Jamarcus Russell. The Raiders wouldn't re-sign Jon Gruden in 2018. He would join the Monday Night Football booth with Mike Tirico for almost a decade. In 2017, Tampa Bay Buccaneers would end up firing Dirk Cutter, end up signing a special someone. Someone that was hungry for more. Was hungry for a comeback. Someone with locks of strawberry blonde and a fury attitude. We all know where this one's going.
Santa Claus is here, huddle up! You throwing like screaming. Were you screaming when you threw it? You guys know the rules. What are we doing?
That's Frankenberry 3 Xbox 460. Come on, man.